We're here today with Dosha Wagner and NonStop Staging at Starbucks, and we're doing a little sit-down interview talking about Shopworn looks on the internet and real estate. You might want to listen to this. Hey, Dosha.
Hi, Christina. As usual, I love to be with you. I've noticed over my time staging and designing, but specifically staging, that when a home has been on the market for a good long time and it changes hands with a realtor, and the new realtor calls me in to make the house look fabulous for photos using what the owner has. I have found that sometimes works. It works really well, but what I've really found that works, and I tried it today, and both the owner and the realtor were like flabbergasted and went, wow, I never thought of that. But it's $1 million+ house. And so I just carefully said, just curious, how long has your home been on the market? And he said, way too long. It's been over a year. And I said, how many showings would you say you've had? And he says, not very many, maybe 2 a month. And I looked at the realtor, and then I looked back at the owner, and I said, well, I'm really glad you've changed to this new realtor because she is fabulous, and that's not going to happen with her because she got people like me out, and she's great at marketing, etc. But I said, did you ever consider when you've been on the market a long time, the house gets shop worn? And the realtor went, yes, it does. And what that really means in lay terms is everyone in town and every realtor in town who's been looking at a house knows that house has been on the market forever, and they think something's wrong with it.
Why do they know that?
Well, because people if they're thinking about purchasing in any time future, they are on Zillow, which is not necessarily the best site, but it's the most easy user site for a buyer, a potential buyer. So they go on Zillow and they pre-program it to tell it exactly the parameters that they're looking for, and they can make it broad or very narrow. And then every morning Zillow will send them probably 18 new photos of houses that meet that criteria.
Do they only send the new ones?
No, they'll send them if there's a price reduction, if anything major's been done and the realtor took it temporarily off the market, which is a TOM. Anything that creates something different, then Zillow will possibly rerun it. But as you and I know, 30 to 40% of the homes listed at any time are the max that usually sell during one person's listing, period. That's not good. And our homes sell. I don't think they ever have to be relisted. I don't think I've ever seen one of my realtors have to relist the property. But when I was talking with the owner, I said, when this particular scenario happens, when people think it's shop worn, and even the realtors, they think it's shop worn, if it's overpriced or if it's been on the market a while, they don't want to waste their time showing it either because it's just
well, they don't want to waste their time, but they also get kind of bored with it, don't you think?
They get bored, and then the thing that a normal person would think is, why hasn't it sold? And of course they might say it's the price, but normally in the back of most funds, in a subliminal area, which is the most important area in selling or purchasing for a person, they think something is probably wrong with the house. And so they're leery of that house. And then it just becomes worse and worse. That's one reason why a good realtor will never overprice a house. They will never take an overpriced listing because it's a waste of time. And in the long run, the seller sells it for much less than they would have had they listened to the realtor's advice. So we were discussing what I could do to help using everything that they had, furniture, furnishings. So what I said, and it completely changed the scenario of the whole appointment when I said this, but I said, honestly, when you have this scenario that you have of it being shop worn, being over a year on the marketing and having low showings, what we need to do is fool the eye. We need to trick even the realtors, which is possible. And we especially need to trick the buyers into thinking it's not the same house. And the way we do that is to create that first picture. Well, the first picture legally needs to be the outside, but the first interior shot is generally the most wow area of the house, or it should be, and that's normally the living area. So what I like to do is come in and totally move everything out and create a whole different look, because it's the look and the wow factor of something completely different that tricks them. It tricks them into thinking, well, I don't know where I've been. I never saw this house, when they might have seen it 2 weeks ago, but they won't recognize it online.
So actually, you're giving people a chance to have a second first impression.
That's exactly right, a second first impression. So this house, as I said, was over $1 million house, and he had some beautiful things, but I don't think they were using them to the best advantage, or he had beautiful collections, but collections, as we both know, don't usually photo well, and they had too many gorgeous pieces of art on the wall. So when you looked in, you felt no sense of peace, which is a huge negative. We always want to create a very dramatic wow, but a very peaceful dramatic wow. And so the use of negative space where there's nothing is just as important as where we do our wow pictures and our wow drama shots.
So you're saying that when the furnishings are actually too upscale, it may give a potential buyer a feeling of discontent and maybe disappointment in themselves, that maybe they're not going to be able to have the kind of life that this house already kind of seems to allude to.
It can do that. And when people have too many beautiful things out, it still creates a sense of unrest, and it makes someone jittery. Like most of the new models, as we both know, in today's market are really overdone. And I used to do model merchandising and did quite a bit of it, and I was always careful to keep my model homes very peaceful, and they always outsold everybody else's, and the buyer build out and the developer build out was always almost a year before they thought, or they had planned it. And that was one of my secrets, is the way to use negative space to your advantage, and then the way to properly place your wow pieces at exactly the right spot for us, the professionals, to force a buyer's eye where we want it to go and in the order that we want it to go. And that's very easily done if you know what you're doing. But most people don't do that, and that creates a jittery, uncomfortable feeling. Or if it's too expensive of a furniture, they all love it, but they can feel intimidated. So our job as stagers is to make it look, of course, we want it to look like a model always. We want it to be really wow, but we want to raise the perceived value of the home with what we do, which is very easy for us to do. But we don't want to use furniture that's out of reach from the majority of the people in that price range for that house. But we want to push them a little bit. We want it to appear to be more expensive, but it's really our skill, not the furniture. You know what I'm saying?
A look of attainable luxury.
I like that. Yes, obtainable luxury. Right, not 8 years out of my budget. When I designed model homes, I would do 3 models in a model center, and we would do 2 of them that were very attainable. One that was probably something that had been around a while, but we would do it in a new, more dramatic way. Then we do something with what they're seeing in the stores all the time, but we would do one that was unobtainable. We would always go to the market and we would purchase all the newest, greatest look that is not shown anywhere in town. It's probably shown in the magazines, but it's not shown locally.
A fantasy look.
Yes, and that house might not start out being the biggest seller, but it would always be the most expensive house we would do. But it would end up always selling furnished, and it would end up being the showstopper that would drive people to the whole development. And so that's the psychology of models.
Okay, well, getting back to this Shopworn kind of situation, I noticed the other day when I was doing some marketing research for you that there are a lot of homes out there on the market these days that are really heavy Tuscan look. What can you say to those realtors and those sellers that are stuck with a house that is so dated and heavily furnished, too heavily furnished? What's the best advice that you have for them?
Well, and I don't say this because I'm a stager, the most important thing they need to do is hire a qualified professional stager. And I know this isn't a word, but I use it all the time. We need to de-Tuscanize the house as much as possible. We need to take out all the, anything Tommy Bahama needs to go, because I did models 25 years ago that were Tommy Bahama. And that is just a look that's been here and gone. Unfortunately, the Tuscan look, which is one of my favorites, has been here and gone. And when it left, it really left. And so
what is now?
We're in Sarasota. Now is a more coastal feel, more contemporary, but not real contemporary, high end, not high tech contemporary furniture. More transitional furniture in soft colors with fabulous abstract art and coastal accessories. And that will sell a house faster than anything. I mean, a lot of our houses sell the first week. It makes great images online. It does. You really need something online that's going to make your home stand out from all of the others that they're getting every day from Zillow.
People are seeing so many programs on HGTV. They're seeing magazines, all the high-end kind of images. And when they've been spoiled by all of that media, and then they start looking at Zillow and they see houses, where people have taken pictures with their iPhone.
That's the worst thing a realtor can do is not have a professional take their photographs. That is probably the worst thing a realtor could do. I mean, they're shooting themselves in the foot. And most of those homes will hardly ever be shown, and seriously, hardly ever be shown. And when Zillow sends those automatic pictures and listings out every day, those homes are almost certainly going to be that automatic delete within 20 seconds. And I will say, while I'm speaking about that, because we always have a lot more properties, or generally, on the market than sell, than we have buyers. The fact that people will spend less than 20 seconds on a house before they click you off, and you're deleted forever from that database. Once you're deleted off of Zillow, they never send that same buyer any pictures, any price reductions, nothing about that house. If the people were to go in and remodel it and repaint it and bring a stager in, it's not going to be shown because it's been deleted. So I was on an appointment with a realtor last week up in Brandon, and we were talking about this very thing with his client, and he said something I hadn't thought of. He said now in every real estate company meeting, they are bringing up staging like it's completely the thing to do, and they're pushing it because they're saying now that your online photos are the first showing of the home. It used to be a whole different world out there where people loved to get in the car with a realtor and they would go see 15 or 20 homes. The buyer today, the profile has completely changed. The buyers do not want to see but maybe 4 or 5, and they don't want to see them with a realtor until they preview them several times, maybe even 15 times online.
How many houses do people look at on average on the internet before they even make an appointment with a realtor?
I don't know, but I would say hundreds and hundreds, because most of these people are getting the autos from Zillow every day. In today's world, the statistics are showing not only do you have to be techie, 95% of all buyers are techie enough to be looking at photos online before they call a realtor and doing it extensively. It's a major project for them. They don't want to be bothered with a realtor until they actually decide they need to go see something. They don't want anybody interfering with what they're doing. They don't want to get in the car and drive and see a lot of houses. They don't have time. They're highly stressed. They're too busy. They just don't have time, nor do they have the energy, nor do they desire to, because we've become such an online society.
Well, when I was doing this research I did earlier this week on Zillow, actually browsing through a lot of homes in a price range of, I'm going to say, between $500,000 and $700,000. I noticed that so many of the houses were beautiful, well furnished, but like you say, even though the word shop-worn kind of gives us the impression of maybe dirty, kind of dingy and all that, I think the shop-worn applies to the fact that the furnishings are 10, 12, 15 years old, yes, that were high-end, yes, high-priced, yes, stuff for that day, but now it's a worn-out look.
Yes.
And so when we say shop-worn, it's not just the fact that, it's kind of worn out. It's just a worn out look.
That's not what I'm talking about,
and,
right?
Yeah,
and worn out look,
and even though,
look.
Overdone is so right, because I just saw so many homes that were the typical front room, maybe an open balcony kind of looking over a nice marble floor kind of entry wow room, but looked like something from a movie set, that was just heavily furnished and draped and all of the dated looking window treatments and all
That's
that.
another thing
Talk
we need to
about that
discuss.
for a minute, okay?
Yes, we really need to discuss window treatments. And I'm an ASID designer. I had my own interior design for a business in Daytona when I did models and exclusively worked in interior design before I started adding staging. I had a workroom. I designed and spec'd out, and we installed window treatments in every house. Unfortunately, in today's world, window treatments are not where it's at, and especially the Tuscan heavy, gorgeous window treatments that I used to make a lot of money on, and I love them. But to be honest, when I go in those homes, I highly recommend that they take them down and patch the holes and leave nothing at all on the windows.
And a lot of them won't do that.
No.
Why is that?
Because they paid so much money for them. I've done houses where we spent $70,000 on the window treatments, and I go in them all the time. So that's a hard sell.
And the people who own the house have the impression that because they paid
Exactly.
$50,000 to $75,000 for these window treatments, that they're going to sell the house. Are they going to sell the house?
No, actually, they often deter from the sale. I'm glad that's a good question. They not only deter from it, often when they are seen on the automatic photos that they're looking through, the minute they see a window treatment in a style they don't like, they totally delete the entire house. That's why we're suggesting people take almost all window treatments down, because our job is to keep on the forefront of what is trending and what's trending across America, what's trending in Tampa, what's trending in Brandon, what's trending in Naples, what's trending in Sarasota. It's all a little bit different. And the first thing that will turn a person off, other than just a completely messy house, are window treatments that they just don't personally like. They could be gorgeous, they could fit the home beautifully, but they just don't like them. And window treatments are so unique. I always laugh with my clients and I say it's almost like picking out your husband or your mattress. There are a couple of things that are really, you need to be very particular with, and you don't need help. You need to really be particular, because those are things you live with for a long time, if not ever. And window treatments it is such a personal choice. There are so many thousands of types of window treatments. And I mean, very few people like everything. And as a matter of fact, when I had a design department in Florida State College, I'll never forget taking my students in a window treatment course over to my workroom. And I'll never forget what the owner said. She said, "We stay busy. We love what we do. We make a lot of money selling window treatments. But you need to know before you go back in our workroom that window treatments are custom window treatments are extremely expensive. And as soon as someone buys that house, they are usually out at the street, or Goodwill picks them up, because hardly ever does someone buy the house and like the same treatments that are in there. So we stay busy because of that. So we love that. But for a buyer and for a seller of a home, they can just be the killing point that people won't come see their house.
So you're saying then that your job as a stager, a designer, is to depersonalize the house. And when people hold on to those window treatments, that's like holding on to that personality and that brand that they created in that house. And that's like the worst thing, because you can do everything you want to depersonalize, take all the pictures off the walls, change the furnishings so that they're more trending and less personal, but those window treatments are still going to say something about that house that is going to neutralize everything that you've tried to do.
I would probably say 95% of the time it would neutralize everything I'm trying to do. I mean, it's that serious, but it's a hard sell. But usually my clients will listen to me because they trust me and they know we get great results, and they'll do it. But they don't. Sometimes they cry, and I don't blame them, because I used to sell them. I know how much they cost, but they date your home more than your countertops. So everybody wants granite countertops. Now everybody wants counter height stools and a bar. But the window treatments will hurt you worse than anything, and it's a real serious thing. Now, when you mentioned the word trending, and that is probably the word I use the most when I'm on appointments, because there's a look that's trending that sells, and then there are looks, and then there are good looks. But what we do, we strive to make everything that we stage and every client we help have the trending look, because the trending look is what is selling today. For example, all those gorgeous things we used to spend all this time in clients' homes putting beautiful things up above their kitchen cabinets, that is the worst thing you can have in a house that's for sale. You need to take everything off of that. I mean, everything. The kitchen should almost be sterile. It should almost look cold, because you're selling not your accessories, you're selling the countertops, the backsplash, the appliances. That's what people want to see. And when they can't see anything because there's too many, even cool things out, they can't see it and they miss it. They'll miss a beautiful backsplash.
What you're saying reminds me of something that you told me before, and that is about people and the impression that they have about their life. The house that they're moving from is probably, they're over it. They're tired of it.
They're over it.
It's a mess. They're trying to move out of it, or they're getting ready to, but it's probably packed full of stuff and they've got to get rid of things. So they're feeling very overwhelmed by their situation of transition. And they're thinking and wanting to imagine that their next life is going to be carefree.
I know, this is so funny.
And this is what you've told me. And so it ties in with what you're saying about the fact that when they see that kitchen so clean and empty, it gives them that feeling that that's how their life is going to look and feel when they live there.
And that's really funny. It's true. When I do my consults with owner-occupieds, I'm always saying, and it's kind of comical, but it's really a powerful marketing tool that I use, is when people are looking for a new home, they create, and it's probably subliminal, a fantasy of their new life and what they expect to get when they move. And it's so funny, because I used to design all these dream kitchens with architects for my design jobs. And I finally realized if you're not cooking now, you're not going to cook in the next house. But the fantasy, we want to keep that fantasy alive, and it might be a little deceptive, but we're selling houses for sellers, so we're working for the seller. If I were working with the buyer, I'd have different advice. But because I'm working with sellers to get the highest possible profit in the shortest number of days, I mean, this is fighting a war. And so we're gonna help foster that fantasy that almost everyone has. We want to create lifestyle areas in the home very carefully. It needs to be really precisely planned, but we want to create and encourage that fantasy that in the next house, I want a little reading area, a little area just for me to sit and read my book all day, not being interrupted with kids or husbands or the phone. Well, the reality is, if they have kids and a husband and a phone, they're going to move with them to the next house. So that's probably not going to happen. And but we want to create little areas like that. We want to create areas, perhaps in a bedroom, that look like you might be having your tea in bed with your husband and maybe a croissant, and it's just really romantic. Well, most people do not do that anymore. It's a wonderful thought that we'd all love to have that kind of, but unless you have servants, you're probably not going to live that way. Most people don't use vanities in bathrooms, built-in vanities anymore. That's getting pretty passé, because most people don't have time to sit down. So we usually want to de-emphasize those and not create a vanity by our staging. We probably just want to ignore it. When we get kitchens, almost all kitchens have a bar or counter with bar stools. Well, right now what is trending, and I'm telling you everybody wants it because they're seeing it in models, is the new counter height bar, and with the bar stools that are low, they match for the counter. So if you have a house that's outdated and it has the high bar, that is really unpopular right now. No, so is your house not going to sell? No, of course it's not. It will. But it will turn a lot of people off. So when I'm staging a home, Some homes demand that I put bar stools there, and I will do it if I have to, because if the pictures are going to look funny. But if I can avoid putting tall bar stools in a house, I will opt to eliminate them all, because the minute I set them up, all you're doing is screaming, "Hey, I'm out of date. I am not trending right now," because they're looking at hundreds of houses and they're going to see models, and every model has counter height stools now. So when I did model design, everyone used to think I was so creative, and I do have a 4-year degree. I did apply my degree. I worked on it. Yes, I do. But frankly, half of model merchandising is pure subliminal psychology. Learning that, and our job, which any developer would tell you if you were having dinner with them, but if you came into their center, they would not say this. But the whole purpose of creating models is to put the newest, latest, and greatest fads that probably change every year. And they spend all this money with professional designers, and we go in, but we create the fantasy as well. And our biggest goal is to have the person spend several hours at one of our model centers, come home, open the door to their house, and go, "I hate my house," even if it's 3 years old. This is so old-fashioned. I mean, we are so out of date. Now, is that deceptive? Yes, it is a little bit, but that's how the marketing system in the capitalistic world works. You're always trying to create a forced obsolescence. That's why they change.
And a feeling of discontent, because that's whether we're buying a blouse or we're buying a bracelet or we're buying a car, it's always the same approach by professionals, is to create a feeling of discontent in the potential buyer. We're going to close this segment out right now, but if you have the time, go ahead and click at the next segment and continue on with Shopworn looks on the internet and real estate with Dosha Wagner and NonStop Staging at Starbucks.